Welcome back to Pass the Syrup. Almost forgot the name of the podcast there and called it something completely different. Pass the Syrup, the estate agency and letting agency podcast. It's run by, it features only estate agents and letting agents from around the country. Actually, today we tick off a box we've been trying to tick for a little while. So we've had English agents, we've had Welsh agents, we've had Scottish agents, and today we feature an agent from Northern Ireland, which is bloody marvellous. So let me start by introducing Stephen McCarron, excuse me, from Derry / Londonderry.
Good man.
Yeah, got to get in there. Donnybrooke estate agents. Stephen, how are you, mate?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm delighted to be on this as well. It's good to have a little bit of representation from the smallest isle amongst us all. So thank you for inviting me.
You are welcome. Thanks for coming on. We are all about, I was going to say diversity. That'd be a complete lie. We're not all about diversity. That would just be an absolute takeaway waffle of the week nonsense statement. But we want representation from everyone. And so good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Returning for his second spot, Thew, Mishon Mackay, the beast from, it doesn't rhyme. I thought I had something that rhymed, but it doesn't rhyme.
The beast from the south.
The beast from the south coast, the beast from Brighton.
The mouth from the south.
And Sussex, the Brighton beast.
Yeah, the mouth
sales
from
director
the south.
for Mishon Mackay. Great to have you back on, Chris. How's it going, mate?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Ben. Thanks for the invite again. Appreciate it. So yeah, let's have a happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
And I've just looked at the clock. It's 11:11. What does that mean? Manifestation, doesn't it? Waffle.
Wow. Oh, he started. It's Happy Tuesday. I just realised that I think I sent last week when I sent out the invites, I sent them on a Tuesday, and I might have emailed to say see you next Tuesday, and I didn't, and it's just clicked. You got to be avoiding the Okay, right. Let's pull it right back. And now the leader of podcast appearances.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Mr. Rowan Waller's estate agents in Oxford.
No. See, now college and county, you see.
I set you up. Tell us.
You did, didn't you?
Come on, what's happening?
So well, Waller's estate agents, as was, we have merged with another local firm. So you're now speaking to sales director at College and County as opposed to Rowan Waller, name above the door, Waller's estate agents. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Getting your name off the door means you can do anything you want now.
I know, they're
don't
terrified.
worry about it.
They're terrified.
You're a member of the team. It's somebody else's problem when things go really, really wrong. It's lovely. Good for you. Congratulations, Ryan.
Thank you, mate.
So we're going to crack straight on. We are into our new format. We're nice and fast. We're nice and punchy. And we start the podcast with the big question of the week. So this week's big question, I've caught the guests off guard here. What's your favourite biscuit?
Oh,
easy.
Go on.
Easy peasy. Custard cream.
Oh, okay. All right. Go on. All right. Not for
Easy.
me.
Easy.
Stephen?
I would say a penguin.
Penguin. All right. Yeah,
Yes.
okay. I do like a penguin.
Is that a biscuit?
They're
I
sort
don't
of
know.
pushing his luck there, really.
He's stretching it. I don't know if a biscuit can come in a single pack. Stretch. We'll give you it, though. Rowan?
Okay.
A hobnob.
What about your favourite biscuit?
Hey. Cup of tea and a hobnob, though. Yeah.
Chocolate covered hobnob. Delicious. Yeah, I'm there on that. Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. Back to the real stuff. Real question of the week. So reasonably controversial, hopefully. Spiky, absolutely. So I've heard this said, I heard this said for the first time about a year ago. I'd never heard it. Buyers are liars and clients are worse. I'd never heard the clients are worse part, but since hearing it, I can't get it out of my head. But if buyers are liars and clients are worse, aren't the consumers simply getting what they deserve in the case of dishonest estate agents? Because, look, we can dress it up as much as we want. We've got a rep for a reason. I'm not suggesting you guys, certainly not suggesting my own team, but there are agents out there that are dishonest. That's the consumer's viewpoint. Aren't they just getting what they deserve?
Well, I don't think any of us can say they are getting what they deserve. I'd love to say yes, but no. But yes, if that makes sense. No, I don't think so. I think in this age that we live in, honesty is the best policy right across the board, no matter what. And no matter what the temptations are, and there are many, and we are provoked many, many times, but we have to stay honest because we're trying to improve our position and how people view us. That's my take on it. Temptation is there though.
So temptation to stretch the truth a little, because when a buyer registers and they want to look at X property for X amount, and then it comes to offer time, and then they fall in love with it, and they really want it. They always find that little bit more, don't they, when they really love it? But that's not you told me categorically that wasn't your budget 3 weeks ago. So they're stretching things. Shouldn't agents just fight fire with fire?
I think there's a big picture. I think the bigger picture is listen. I think honesty is an integral part, and that's the reason why people instruct an agent, is because when they trust them. But I think there's also an element that where money's involved, my mum always says this: money is the root of all evil, and it is so true. And where money is involved, there's a handful of people in my life that I trust, and I think where money's involved, I think it's really important that actually it is straight down the line. But people, it is a very difficult conversation to have, I think, and I think that sometimes buyers, everyone's out to protect their, especially if it's buyers, everyone's out there to protect their own pocket, which is understandable. And then it's human nature, isn't it? You want to sell high and buy low, using your example. That's human nature, isn't it? So I think, have we got what we deserve? No. Or have they got what they deserve? No. I just think it's human nature. Unfortunately, where money's involved, it's people, they're protecting their own pocket at that point in time. We're using that as an example, I guess.
The phrase often used is that if they tell us what their budget really is, that we'd somehow use it against them, as if there's some massive conspiracy amongst the estate agents to take every last penny off them. And obviously it's a mistaken idea, but I hear that so often. We don't want to tell the agent in case they use it against us.
And the flip side is, I imagine you also might hear that from sellers, that they tell you they need to, or they really have to achieve X price, and then when it gets down to the nitty-gritty in negotiation, actually they're willing to do a deal if there's some maneuverability somewhere else, and there's something else that could be negotiated, or it allows them to move on with their life. Both parties, the consumer in general, I think, is so guarded when dealing with us that they don't think they can tell us the truth.
Mm-hmm. But I think that's so far. I think that's so far ingrained. I think that's the, and I guess that's partly the problem with the industry. And again, without pushing too far into the industry, because we want to try and move away from that in this pod, is actually we have made a rod for our own back. Let's be really honest. Is that's all the industry has had that in. I was never driving around in. I was born in '84, so my first taste of a state agency was in 2004. But back in the 80s, the the flash escorts, or was it all that jazz in the 1980s? I think that's probably where a lot of the agency or the bad rep has come from, is that sharp practice back then. And unfortunately, we've carried it through. And you never shift it, because you're dealing with people's biggest assets, and you're selling the most important thing people ever buy or sell. So, yeah, I think it's a difficult thing to kind of rep. But,
let me ask you guys this. I'll start with you, Ryan, because you've been
I've been quiet so far.
Yeah, I'm coming right at you. Have you ever been disingenuous when you've been a consumer trying to make a purchase, maybe negotiating on a car, or negotiating on a purchase of a property, or or the rent of a property?
I'm actually rubbish at negotiating for myself. I'm absolutely appalling. So I've never not paid asking price for a house, or over asking price, I think. So so I'm the worst person to ask. But I don't know. I think, have I ever been disingenuous? We're all capable of it, right? I think
we are absolutely capable of it.
I think everybody wants the best deal for themselves. I think, to answer the general question that you've asked, you know what, I'll say two things. First of all, you should all go and look for The Ballad of David and Penelope by Rowan Waller, and find that on YouTube, because that just tells this story in poetic form. In fact, Charlie Lambden has posted that on his YouTube site, so you can go there and have a look for it.
Who's Charlie Lambden?
Charlie Lambden. Oh well, we can talk about that later. So, but to answer the general point, I think that there's a lot of advice being given to buyers about how to get the best deal out of out of estate agents, and i.e., I mean, there's like advice going out there saying you should be knocking it down by 20-30%, which isn't going to do anyone any favors. And they can afford more. They just want to get less. So this, I don't know, I don't know if that's disingenuous or not, but I think it's disingenuous from the point of view of, if this is just in this current situation that we're talking about now, where there's this idea that the market's going down, and the advice is, well, if the market's going down, you want to be buying it below the market value. But when the market's going up, the advice is never, well, then, the market's going to be 10% up by next year, so you really want to be offering that much to catch up with, where it's going to be. So it doesn't really cut in both directions. I think that the problem with buyers, liars, clients are worse is that one of the problems is when we first go into a estate agency, or at least when I first went into a estate agency, similar to Chris, 2005, I went in thinking that we were there to work for the buyers. That's sort of, you just assume that's your job. And you immediately get told, oh, no, the buyers aren't our clients at all. The clients are the sellers, because those are the ones that pay the fee. And it kind of gets drummed into you as a junior neg. And then you evolve into a estate agency with this idea that you are there to serve the seller. And in somehow that is not serving the buyer. And you have to crack yourself out of that cycle. And I don't know whether that is typical across the board in a estate agency, but it felt like it was the doctrine in corporate estate agency anyway. And corporate estate agency tends to sort of dominate the estate agency landscape, and particularly for young estate agents, because it's where all the kind of the best training is. So I think perhaps we're set up for that fall and this kind of battle with buyers from an estate agent's point of view from really early on in our career, and that perhaps perpetuates this, what is really a myth, that estate agents are the enemy. And I think that's where buyers come from, is that they kind of come with this sort of nervous attitude that we are there to somehow shaft them. Whereas, well, I mean, are we or not? We are there, I suppose, to get the best deal for our clients, which is the seller. But ultimately, we are there to facilitate a deal. And I don't know if there's an easy way out of that. But the easy way out of that, to me, isn't ROPA. The easy way out of it isn't licensing. It's not extra regulation. I don't think any of that is going to make us more trusted as an industry at all. I'm not saying it's not going to do good things for the industry, but I genuinely don't think it's going to help the general public view us in any sort of better light than they do now.
Can I ask, sorry, I have to ask this question. You talk about, not ROPA or not regulation. What is the answer? Because there has to be something that's going to improve the public's opinion. Otherwise, we'll stay in eternal hell and damnation, where all estate agents are, in effect, a bit dodgy, a bit crooked, a bit woo, a bit way. And that, in reality, is so far from the truth. There are a few rogues out there. How do you get an answer to that problem if it's not going to be regulation?
Well, I think the regulation, we are already regulated, so we could just enforce what's already there to get the rogues out of the system. I mean, that would be a good start. I mean, we can get more regulation, but if they're not going to enforce the new regulation, it's not going to help anyway. They're still going to get the rogues. I just don't think that they will care that we have to go through qualifications to. Yeah. I mean, what are the qualifications really going to tell you to do as an estate agent? I mean, it doesn't really. All of the qualifications in a estate agency that matter to the general public, I think, are all based on value. So really, they want surveyors to be in charge of it and set values, because I think that's what consumers are always terrified of, that they're either paying too much for something that's unfair, or that they're being told to sell for less than something's worth, probably because they've got Jack the lad from down the road knocking on their door saying, oh, I can't believe I've got a list as long as my arm of people who come round and pay you twice the price for that. So, and the regulation's not going to stop that either, because it's still going to be a kind of a free market society that we live in, where you are allowed to go and tout other stock and say that sort of thing without any. I don't think that you're not going to be made to sort of prove that you have got that list of buyers that's going to stop all of those practices. So those kind of shady practices aren't going to be stopped by ROPA.
I've often wondered this. If it was set under some sort of law or legislation that when an agent gives a valuation, that there's only a certain level of tolerance with it. In other words, the guys that go out and say, oh, your house is worth 50 grand more than the agent that comes in before them, and basically gaslights the client. What if there was something that came into legislation or law that made that agent responsible or culpable if their client loses out as a result of it, is that something that you think would be good in agency, that would sort out the men from the boys and stop that?
Well,
practice?
yes and no. I mean, that sounds like a great idea and a solution, but the trouble is that values are dictated by absolutely extraneous things that we can't control. So we can control that Liz Truss was going to launch a grenade in September last year that kind of toppled our market, and we can't control what some commentator might come in and say these, house prices are going to dip by 35% over the next year. That makes buyers go, oh God, well actually I'm going to have to start offering this, and all of these things. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that is going to control what the market does, but it is controlling what a certain sector of buyers are now thinking. And I guess you'll never be able to then prove that by, if someone then goes and accepts an offer that is 15% less than they were told by an agent they should accept, could they not have? It's a moment in time, another month later, and they might have got a bit more for it, and it will never be something that could be proven.
I think the other, so we've wandered off down a little path here, but this is good. No, this is, I mean, it happens every week. I've come to terms with it. It's just like going on holiday with my 3 little girls. I do what they tell me. You guys, you run the show. I'm just going to linger in the background, hoping I don't get attacked. I think the question is, what's a rogue agent for me? Because rogue agent gets thrown around a lot. And today we started the conversation with dishonest agents, but quite a lot when we talk about ROPA, we're talking about compliance and legislation, and rogue agents that are breaching compliance and legislation. My mindset, and it's just my opinion, being a London-based agent and have been for 20 years and interact with some interesting characters, a rogue agent is someone that doesn't tell the truth. They're not intentionally breaching legislation and compliance. I actually listened to a podcast with 2 really experienced agents just last week, cycling into the office. 2 good guys. They know their stuff. They're good agents. You'll see them on social media. You may have heard it yourself. And one of them raised a question around compliance, around when you take a property from another agent and who's responsible if a buyer the previous agent introduced, they want to come back, they want to buy. I want to go into full detail because they don't want to necessarily overly highlight the fact that they didn't have a clear understanding of what the compliance and legislation around that was, which I was really, really surprised by.
It really with the Foxton's ruling, right?
Well, but they had a very vague conversation and said, how would we address this? Well, so Finding Country are part of Nurture Group. Nurture Group have access to Paul Offley, head of compliance, really good guy, knows his stuff. That's a simple conversation. The rules are there. They are set. It's not vague. It's not grey. It's just black and white, and it's really simple. And that really highlighted for me that 2 really good agents. Actually, when I think of rogue agents, I'm just thinking of the cowboys and not all London agents, because we're in London and we're wonderful human beings. But there's plenty of cowboys in London. I think of cowboys, but actually, I think lots of others are thinking, my agent isn't actually an expert. They don't know everything they need to know and should know to be my agent. So I think there's a definition piece around what a rogue agent is. And then there's Rowan, you raised it. Policing is actually, for me, that's the silver bullet, effective policing. At the moment, I can't think of a really good way in which we're able to police estate agents other than agents grassing each other up. And we all know, that doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Sure, the definition of a rogue agent then is someone who puts himself or herself first above all others. Is that not the start of what a rogue agent is?
It depends. So if I was to manipulate that statement, I'd say I put myself first, but by me putting myself first, it ensures I'm going to get my client the best result because I want to be a successful agent.
But I'm talking about putting yourself first above your client. So you're the most important person in the circle, and is that not surely the definition of a rogue agent?
I've just literally just typed in rogue meaning into Google. Now that doesn't mean everything, guys. But is a dishonest and unprincipled person. So take that from what you mean, really. I guess I think there are some things about there are some examples where I think it's probably lack of training, lack of experience. But I think if you're being dishonest, and again probably not working for who you should be, then that's a problem, I guess, isn't it? I guess that's what for me that means rogue. When someone says, "Oh, well, he's gone rogue," I guess that's what it kind of means in my headspace. I guess it just means that actually they've gone off and been a maverick.
It's funny, isn't it? on a Friday night, which is not very often anymore because of my age, but if I go out for a beer, the guys in the office will say Ben's gone rogue, and what that means is Ben's gone home. That's what that's Ben snuck away. Ben's got out as quickly as possible. What I would say is one thing that Steph Walker from the Agency UK said last week, although it might be on this week actually. She spent a lot of time working in America for Purple Bricks. She almost launched the brand over there. Now, she's not using her experience with Purple Bricks over there to quantify anything. The point she made was, in America, agents are licensed, and there's just as many dodgy characters working over there as there is here. So the licensing piece is not the silver bullet. I think you said it early on, Rowan. It makes up part of improving standards, but there's got to be a selection of initiatives that we bring in to improve standards, remove rogues, remove dishonesty. Although
it's on it, because the funny thing is, you can have an agent that's dishonest but principled. So you could have an agent that's being dishonest to a buyer about, say, another buyer. I'm not saying you shouldn't do this, by the way, or should you? Right? Because if your job is to get the best possible price for a client, the client wants £500,000, and you've got a buyer who's offering 480. By the way, and I absolutely caveat, you're not allowed to do this. Somebody's offering 480, you know your client wants 500, and you say to that buyer who's offering 480, look, I've got somebody else who wants to pay 500 for this, and you're going to miss out if you don't buy it. And they go to 500. They can go to 500. They're willing to therefore go to 500, but the way of getting them to 500 has been dishonest. But the principle that they've done it for is because they're getting the best price for their client. And actually they've got the price that this person can and is willing to pay, but didn't want to. They didn't want to pay it. So anyway, I don't do that. I'm not saying you can do it, but
it goes on. You're right. It goes on.
It definitely goes on, but it's dishonest, but it's principled, because the principle is, I knew that this person was lying to me. When they said they couldn't go up from 480, they didn't want to go up from 480. 480 is the best they're going to offer. But I've said someone else is going to offer 500, and lo and behold, this person's gone up to 500. That will happen. I've never done it, but it will happen, and arguably that agent has then got the price for their client.
But is that agent principled if they also take a risk that our buyer will just go, fine, go to the other person, let them pay 500 grand?
Yeah, absolutely. Don't get me wrong. There are all sorts of risks, aren't there? And it will get spun, because you'll have agents saying, I've got someone who is going to be looking at the weekend who's saying that they can go up to 500, and all of these, and there'll be nuanced ways of agents doing it. And that's probably more likely the way it happens, because I don't think there are many agents who are as dishonest as that example. But there is I suppose a temptation for agents to do what they can from a sales point of view to make sure they're getting the best price out of a buyer. Anyway, that would be dishonest, but there'd be a principle behind it.
But Rowan, you and Chris have sort of made the point that, so Chris said when it comes to money, it's human nature. You said something similar early on, Rowan, when this is just, people protecting themselves, getting their best. So the argument is that if the consumer is able to allowed to allow human nature to set in and protect their money, then the counter argument, well, so are agents. The agent is, in essence, protecting themselves, making sure they're putting dinner on the table at home, they're getting their client the best possible price by saying these things, doing these things.
Yeah,
it's
isn't it actually, in just one word? Let's think about this. Isn't it just called negotiation? That's I think if you can boil it down to the reason we're probably all on this pod is probably because we're all fairly skilled business people that have been able to skillfully work our way up through a ladder of whatever that may look like for each of us, but we've all been able to successfully negotiate a great price for our clients over me on 21 years now, I guess. And actually, isn't that all part of life? Whether you go to a car boot sale or whether you're buying a house, it's just negotiation, isn't it? So, but what's really important is most important. I mean, part of one of our underneath our logo is trusted property professionals. And I think, especially right now, I think that's really important, because I don't think that without trust, you ain't going to get any instructions. But I also think there's an element of negotiations, and being a negotiator But you can be a negotiator without going rogue. There you go.
Yeah.
And there is the soundbite for the episode. Beautiful.
There you
Absolutely. That is exactly why you're on here, mate. You can
Oh, yeah.
so beautifully.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we've had a good 25-minute conversation. I'm none the
We
wiser.
solved that question, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm more confused than when we started 25 minutes ago. Just tell the truth. I mean, to Rowan's example, yeah, there are ways of presenting other interested parties without being really specific. There are ways to negotiate people up without falsifying other interests. Chris is absolutely right. I wasn't born with negotiation skills. I've learned them over the last 20 years, and so can everyone else. Although, definitely for another podcast, Rowan, I've written it here, corporates provide the best training. We're going to get into that another time. Next time you're on, we're going to have that
Discuss.
as a subject matter. That is one for us to get into. That's an interesting one. Right. Time for the social hand grenade. So I saw this on social actually a few weeks ago. I'm a bit of a geek. I save things I like the look of. So the social hand grenade is very, very simply something you see on social media. That's either got lots and lots of interactions, engagement, and people are interested by it, or in some instances, the hand grenade didn't go off. And I think it should have gone off because it's an important subject matter, or it's something that is really worth conversation, but maybe the algorithm didn't agree. This week, it was an engagement piece. So I'm going to share it with you guys so you can see. Nobody cares about your market share. What they care about is what you can do for them. Solve their problem, deliver results, and you'll have all the market share you need. What they're really saying is, don't worry about your market share. Worry about solving the consumer's problems. What do you think? Market share important or not? Because this really divides opinion.
Yes and no. I think market share is really important because I think it. I say really important. It's important to understand what market you're working in, and actually, have you got the best people within your business that are able to go and you win great pieces of business, do the very best job for the client. Do I want my teams whacking a load of right move graphs on there? No, but if someone's proud of that, let them be that person. You know, I said it previously, Ben, on the pod. Stay infinite, stay in our lane, and if I can make sure that my team stay in our lane, I don't care. Let's be honest, you adjust market share reports to suit your narrative at that day, within that hour, at that point in time. It's important for I look at them because I think it's important. It's an important metric for me to see how we're doing out there in the market, and actually to see if we're getting our unfair share, or not, as the case may be. And in certain pockets and certain branches, we're doing well, and in certain pockets and certain branches, we need to do better because there's more coming to the market at the right prices than we've actually got out to. So that's a training issue and a support issue to that branch. Not there to blow our own trumpet, or it's vanity and sanity. I think it's important. Vanity and sanity at play there. But I think to gain market share, you obviously have to be very good at what you do. You have to be trusted, and you've got to be able to execute it. So I think there's an important part of making sure that you know what the market's doing out there, what the market's able to deliver for you, and then it's down to us as leaders to stay infinite in our lane and basically do the very best of what we can possibly do. But if people want to shove their market share graphs, let them do it. That's fine. It doesn't offend me at all. If they want to crack on, then let them crack on. If it's their way, isn't it?
So Chris has taken us straight into right move pie charts. Absolutely lethal on this podcast for a right move pie chart conversation. So Ryan, I'm going to pull it back, and rather than talk about how you're displaying your market share, what do you think? Market share, necessity, not needed in this day and age? We have different models that are surviving without.
I think it's I'm a kind of a living example of it, right? So I didn't have enough market share. So, and I still had to find £25,000, £30,000 a month to run a business. And that was becoming too hard. So it was easier and better for me to let myself get eaten by another agent that took all of that drama off me. So I think market share does matter. But I kind of took this view, this I can't remember your quote now, but it wasn't quite Watkin-esque, but it was almost, wasn't it? So no one cares about your market share but your mum, or something like that. But the second line was, I think, the important one, and that's the one I'm now forgetting. So what?
So I'll read it out to you. Nobody cares about your market share. What they care about is what you can do for them. Solve their problem, deliver results, and you'll have all the market share you need.
Yeah. So I think that's a very principled statement, and those were my principles. And there'll be tens of people in Oxford who think that about me, but there aren't hundreds of people. And because there aren't hundreds, or maybe there are hundreds, but there aren't thousands, actually, I couldn't make enough profit that made me feel comfortable enough about going, do you know what? This is now the trajectory for Waller's estate agents for the next 20 years. I took a totally different view and thought, do you know what? I've had a nice run, but I'm gonna now look for an exit from it, because actually it's just too costly. Now, there are a lot of lower cost models now, and I think this is the new breed of agency coming in, the self-employed type, where they can offer that really, really super dedicated, personalized service and they don't need market share. They need 3 or 4 sales. Some of them need 3 or 4 sales a year on the fees that they're getting, but let's say 3 or 4 sales a month, whereas I was needing 10, 12 sales a month to know that we were going to make profit. And that's a market share issue. Unless you've got market share, you can't sustain that level. But if you are running a lower cost model, then of course you don't need the market share, and then you can afford to to do this. But actually, we were trying to run a dedicated. Let's put all of the sort of the love and soul and effort and I still can't remember this second line now, but we were solving these people's problems. But the suggestion that gives you market share is not true. You have to go and get market share in other ways, and I think that the criticism of agents that go for big market share, I think, is unfounded, because those are successful, profitable estate agents that will survive in markets, whereas smaller agents go, do you know what, eat me.
Yeah, I mean, quite poignant. Great timing having you on for this one, but I don't say this very often. I agree with every single thing you just said. And I don't mean with you. I mean with most people, just because I'm an argumentative sod. But because there's so much criticism over businesses that have overheads to cover, and they can be doing a great job for their clients, but they still need a bit more for it to be a worthwhile endeavor. You've nailed it. But Stephen, I mean, the two guys they waffled on a bit there. They've taken a lot of the content. I'm not sure what's left.
Well, okay, so I've had 32 years, and I started off in corporate, set up quite young, and I chased the dream. I chased the market share, and nothing would do that I had to have 30 houses every month listed, and I wanted to beat the next nearest agent, and I wanted the largest newspaper advertisement of the week, and whatever else came along, and I nearly drove myself into the ground as a result of it. And I learned a lesson over the piece was that, again, the service, it's about providing a service, and you do stretch yourself, and it gets more costly. The bigger you get, the more you need to feed under the fire. And there's an expression about a big fire will burn you and a small fire will keep you warm. And so I completely changed the model that we had and concentrated on a new homes market, which in essence then brought me more business. And my business, I wouldn't call it niche, but we have a smaller, more compact business. We have a smaller, more compact staff, but we get greater fees because we can give our clients a better level of service. And I can promise you this, I probably earn as much, if not more, than the leading estate agent, inverted commas, in terms of numbers of listed homes, and provide a much better service. And people come now to us for service, as opposed to being led by, if you like, whatever the latest stats are on our local website, which is Property Pal. And I don't know, I can't talk for everybody, but I'm a happier person for it. I was a miserable sod for 20 years, because I chased the pipeline dream and I chased the listings dream. And I would go as far as to say I wasn't even a particularly nice person at the time. And just something changed, and I could see something different. We call it maturity, call it whatever. For me, in this day and age now, it is about providing a quality service. I hear what it takes to run an office. I have a high street office. I have all the overhead, but I have set myself down a model that allows me to provide service. And I'm not, the most key thing is, I'm not looking over my shoulder. I don't worry about what anybody else is doing anymore, because all I need to concentrate on is what I'm doing in the market. And I think what I'm doing in the market serves my clientele very well. That's my opinion on it and where things are at.
And so for you, Stephen, you've got a strong market share in your specialist area, though, right?
Yes.
So, because market share, so we're a premium price property, so we regard ourselves as a bit of a specialist. We've got a niche. We don't work on properties priced below £1 million. So we've got a good market share in that bracket. But if you looked at us in the whole of the market, the average consumer doesn't know who we are. And so I think it's important that
and that's like Shogun Art of War, isn't it?
Say that again, Ryan.
That's like Shogun Art of War, isn't it? It's choosing your battlefield.
Well, I heard a term recently, smallest viable audience. It's a marketing term. Build a business where you can target the smallest viable audience that creates a commercial success for you. So you don't be everything to everyone. Find your niche, nail it, smash it, and then you're the market share leader in your niche. But actually, in the wider, in the wider framework, you're, finding country. So I'm very honest about finding country. What we're really good at from a collective perspective is looking at our data in the premium price point bracket and saying, oh, market share is this and that and this. And it's complete fugazi. Our market share is not that. Most of the general public are looking at agents that cover the whole of the market. What I would say, though, is market share is really helpful when it comes to winning business and doing business for me. To be able to say we're the number one because of X, Y, Z. I think people like to follow the pack. We're pack animals. Yeah. And I also think once you've gained a market share in your particular area, whatever that might be, it naturally generates more activity for you. In our old business, we were the number one selling agent, I believe, because we had the highest market share. And quite often a consumer might say something like, look, can you sell mine discreetly? Can you do it offline? And our retort is, you need to play your part in this system. We could sell your property discreetly off market, but everyone else is contributing to the sale of all these other houses. By all of you going on the market, that property will generate a buyer for you. Your property goes on the market, you'll probably generate a buyer for the next one that comes to the market. We've all got to do our bit to help each other sell. And so our goal was to retain market share because it generated we just had a great database of buyers. And that's, that's how I think we did a lot of our business. But all really good points on market share. That's meant to be a 2-minute piece, that social hand grenade. We've done another, all right. Don't worry, guys, it's good work. It's okay. We've got 12 minutes left to do basically half the podcast. It's good, it's solid. Right, you can't make it up. So every week, just get off your chest. Can't believe this silly story. Can't believe what's going on in the world. Mine is more serious this week, just because I've had at home, we've had a hell of a period. So in a 10-day period, my 7-year-old was diagnosed with dyslexia. Within a week of that diagnosis, because of that diagnosis, she had to have her eyes tested, and she's got some, it's in layman's terms, sort of a lazy eye. It's not really a lazy eye. It's something where the eye muscle doesn't work as it's meant to. She's got to wear pink glasses when she reads. That will correct it for her. That will train her. That's not the end of the world. That's okay. Dyslexia nowadays doesn't mean anything. I'm going to have myself tested because based on everything I've learned about dyslexia, I'm dyslexic. Next up, though, our 2-year-old turned 2 this week, burst her eardrum, and that's the 9th time. That's the 11th time in 12 months. She's been on antibiotics every month for the last year, and we can't. The referral to the NHS to get grommets fitted and everything looked at is May next year, which is insane. May next year, the GP said to us, "You've got to go private. She won't survive till May next year." So okay, fine. And then last week, our 3-year-old broke her arm. I'm telling you, social services are going to be knocking at my door. They are going to, what are we doing with these poor kids? 3 little girls, all have got injuries. It's not massive, it's a buckle fracture. It'll be healing 3 or 4 weeks. They're all happy, they're fine, but you can't make it up. 3 in a row, things come in threes. So that's my home life right now. I'm basically a medic, but that's good. It's fine. Lighten the mood, guys. What you got for me?
Go on, I'll go. I'll do one. Well, I'm going on holiday for quite a special birthday coming up for myself in March and my wife in December. I'll let you choose that. He's got a 4.
30. Yeah, 30. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And basically, we're going on December. We're going on a nice cruise around the Caribbean, and I said that I want to have a Barbados bod. right?
Lovely.
So I wanted to get a Barbados body, get myself looking all slim again. I've put on probably about, I don't know, I'm half a stone, maybe a stone heavier than I want to be. Anyway, last time I went running, I went through the woods, lovely little run up the woods, and twisted my ankle. Anyway, I was off running for, that was probably about, I don't know, about 3 or 3 weeks. Ankle quite swollen. It was a weak ankle from when I was trying to play badminton when I was younger. Anyway, I went out on Sunday morning, and guess what? Twisted my ankle again. Same bloody thing. So it's that route. I'm trying to get this Barbados bod, Ben, but I can't do it. I've got a problem.
Here, mate, I'll solve your problem for you. I started intermittent fasting. Have you heard about this? It's quite popular. I started it 6 weeks before we went on holiday in August. I dropped 5 kilos.
What's 5 kilos in pounds? I work in pounds.
About double.
About double. Yeah. So, well, okay, a fair bit, just under a stone then. Yeah.
Yeah. So really, really simply, you try and eat 16 hours. You leave a 16-hour window between, say, dinner and when you eat the next day. So really simple. If I have my dinner at 8 p.m, yeah, right. But let's just say I finish at 8 p.m and I don't eat and drink anymore. For the rest of the evening, I just wait until 12 o'clock the next day to have food or drink. So you can have water, you can have black coffee, and that's what I have in the morning, just black coffee until I have lunch, and I have lunch a little bit later. It will change your life, Chris. I'm pushing it on everyone, but the health benefits are insane. I would recommend Diary of a CEO. That's how I got onto it, and looking up the episode that covers intermittent fasting. I'll have a look at it. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah,
it's amazing, and it's so easy. It's not, diets are quite difficult to stick to. You got to get the right food and prepare.
Yeah.
And this is just don't eat.
My asbestos surveyor arrived just at the crucial moment, and now I'll never have a 6-pack. So
you've already got one. Who are you kidding?
Yeah, it goes the wrong way.
Stephen, what you got for us? What's your? I can't believe.
You know what? I can't make it up. It's one of these weird things again, because I spent the last year as president of NEA and drinking out my way through 12 months of appearing at different conferences, and I've gone on a health check as well. And same thing for me, only it's called sciatica. So I decided I was just about to kick off. I had my very first walk up the hill, back went, that was it, and then I was in bed for 3 days, and I'm just absolutely disgusted because I have to get rid of this weight. And it's not even a beach bod I'm looking for. It's a health check. I have to do it. I'm 52 years of age. Time has come. I can't behave like a 30-year-old anymore. But other than that, not much, to be perfectly honest. But I'm really interested in intermittent fasting, because Nathan's been doing that at Property Mark, and he swears by it.
Amazing.
But I just don't get it. He says he can eat what he wants to eat. But it sounds amazing.
All your food and drink in an 8-hour window. So I would normally have lunch at about 2 o'clock. I don't have a big lunch because working lunch sort of thing. But then for dinner, I'll have anything I want, and I've got a very sweet tooth, so it always involves some sort of dessert. And I still drop 5 kilos. It's there's a lot of science behind it, obviously, but there's study after study after study that show that prove that it works, and the health benefits are insane. So much so now that they are prescribing cancer patients to do a 5 to 7 day fast because it repairs the body in such an extreme fashion. It's crazy. It's insane. I'm completely hooked. 5 to 7 day fast sounds like hell. And also lots of people, though, sorry, this has turned into a bloody health podcast. Lots of people think that it's going to be really, really challenging. The first week or two, your stomach needs to get used to not, if you have breakfast normally, you're going to get used to not having breakfast. But after the first couple of weeks, I see my dad every now and again, and we talk about this, and he's, "You're not hungry." No, the body just gets used to it. It gets used to what it gets used to, get into a good routine. I end up having 2 or 3 coffees every morning, where I used to maybe only have 1. But I also listened to a podcast yesterday. It said coffee is really good for you and will extend your life. So, amen. Happy with that.
Yeah.
Good.
Right. Ryan, you got anything that's not health related? Anything?
Yeah, I can tell you one about coffee. I've got so many stories for my life in estate agencies. But we wrote a little book when I was at Abbott's of all this stupid stuff that happened. And one of those was, so it's a story about a lady called Mabel. She was a little, like a classic little old lady who had me out to do a market appraisal at her house. So we did the tour of her house and ended up in the kitchen, sat at the kitchen table, and then she said, "Can I get you a cup of tea?" And I said, "Oh, I'll have coffee, please." And she said, "Oh, well, I don't normally drink coffee, but I've got some here somewhere." I was like, "Oh, it's all right, I'll have tea." She went, "No, I've got coffee somewhere." Anyway, so the warning signs were there anyway. So she made us a cup of coffee. She came and sat down. She said, "Do you have milk and sugar?" I said, "Just milk, please, Mabel. I'm sweet enough." All of that sort of thing.
Oh, he's
So
got
then
the
we sat
charm,
down.
hasn't he? He's got the charm.
Took a sip of my coffee. I was like, "Oh." And I looked up, and I realised that she had not found coffee from her cupboard. She'd found gravy. So, but I felt so embarrassed for her. I didn't say anything. I just said, "Oh, actually, I think I will have a little bit of sugar, please." So, so I just sat there and ate, drank my my cup of bisto with milk and two lumps.
Wow, Rowan, you're my hero. That's absolutely insane.
And do you know what? And then her daughter, so I didn't sign her up at the kitchen table. Her daughter called me the next day, and she said, "I just want to say, my mum was so mortified, but you were so kind that you didn't, embarrass her." So I did win the instruction, but then she also told me that I put everything away for her, and I put it up too high, so she couldn't reach her tea bags anymore. So I had to go back round.
If you didn't win that instruction after drinking a mug of gravy, then I would have had to get out of the game at that point. That would have sent me over the edge. Wow, a mug of gravy. That's horrific. Good for you. That's a good story. That's a great story. Right, Agents Together, Sam Offley. Brief introduction. Agents Together is a mentor-mentee charity set up specifically for the property industry. So if you think you could benefit from a mentor to help you with any area of your life, speak to Sam Offley. Likewise, if you think you have something of value to offer to mentees, speak to Sam Offley and become a mentor. It's so fulfilling. I can't stress it enough. Every week we do just a small section. Sam asks a particular question. Just in case you didn't pick up on that, guys, you three, small section, nice quick answers, because we're definitely going to run over. Sam hasn't, to be fair, it's my fault. I didn't get to Sam in time to get his question of the week on video. I'm going to read it for you. So a question that mentees are raising at the moment that they need some help with is basically, man, there's so much to learn in a estate agency, and there's so much content out there, so many tools for learning. Where should they start? Where should they begin? It's almost intimidating. There's so much out there. So what advice would you give really for agents starting out? Where should they start in terms of their learning journey? Good one.
That's a really difficult question.
Yeah.
Right.
I think from my perspective, I think if a new starter is coming into and they've chosen a business, then I'd have to say I think a lot of mentorship and training should be. You should quantify what that looks like before you enter the business and see what their onboarding actually looks like. It's something that we're looking at as a business actually at the moment because it's so important. Actually, what does the firm, the entry firm look like and their onboarding process? And then for me, making sure that the incoming, whoever they sit behind or whoever they're being managed by, making sure that there's an excellent leader. And I'll use the word leader more than manager. It's got to be a leader. There's got to be a leader within that business or that branch or whatever that may look like. So I'd actually say there's no textbook for a estate agency. It's actually making sure that you're actually positioned within the right business and make sure that their onboarding process is actually second to none. And we're overhauling ours right now. So that's something for me, which is quite a good question, mate, because I totally understand that new incoming people, it can be quite daunting. So yeah,
there's a lot, isn't
making
there?
sure the company's got a proper onboarding process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think the reality of it is that if you're someone that's coming out of school and you're beginning the process and you want to become an estate agent, it's difficult to understand or recognise what is the right or wrong onboarding process and what routes are there. And the one thing that I learned is because I had left school, done A levels and went straight on the estate agency, my ability to retain information was very good because you just come out of that learning background. And I do say this, and I'm not trying to push any particular products or otherwise from Property Mark, but you have to begin some sort of learning course. And I suppose a level 2 qualification in property management or letting or estate agency is the place to begin. apprenticeships is also really important, because I think that's where you'll find you'll get most structure, that you have some sort of support system outside of the office as well, because you can't assume that everybody, you can be a good leader, but not necessarily a good teacher. You can show people the way, but, you know, I think everybody's got gaps in their skill set. And it's really, really, really difficult to just assume you're going to get the best possible training. So it involves a lot of what you're prepared to do yourself, I think, in many ways. And I think apprenticeships are the key to all of that, because there is an outside structured learning process, and then obviously on the job learning. And those are the two most important things. Certainly from my perspective, I think that's why I succeeded in the way that I did, because there was both on the job and off the job learning. And the two things have to marry together, in my humblest opinion.
Yeah, it's we used several apprenticeship schemes at our old business. The issue we really had was not with the apprentices; it was with the people running the schemes, and find reliable people that would be there for the apprentices. And more often than not, the apprentice within a matter of months had transferred out of that apprenticeship into just a sort of more of a standard role. Yeah. But I completely take the point that not all leaders are great teachers, and as it happens, estate agency's got to be one of those sectors where more often than not people get promoted because they're great at one role and not necessarily have the skill set for the next role. So this is why it's a tough question, because it's that we don't have a universal answer to this. What's the best way to induct yourself into an industry? What do you think, Ryan?
I think that we get too bogged down in compliance. And we have to be compliant, okay? So there are things that we need to do legally, but I think that a lot of this, and that's why I'm kind of Roper gets on my nerves a bit, because it's all about how to be compliant from an obligation to HMRC and everything else. And I know we don't want people money laundering, but ultimately most people aren't going to go into a state agency with the intention of helping money launderers. So apart from saying you need to spot these warning signs, I think that we get bogged down on all of that way too quickly. And actually, good estate agency is about human relationships. So, I was being a bit facetious earlier when I was talking about, you can be dishonest but principled. I don't really believe that. I think you have to be honest and principled, right? And I think that any new starter, it should be about how can you help them astonish the clients? That's what their job is. I want to show you how you really astonish a client, because I can't tell you really how to go and do a good viewing. I mean, it's like a viewing's a viewing, right? So the house will probably sell itself to somebody. So apart from being able to spot a bathroom instead of a dining room, there's not much you really need to teach people. What you need to teach people is about how you communicate well, why it's important to follow up with feedback, why it's important to ask the right questions when you're giving feedback, how you deliver that feedback then to a client in the right way. So that's astonishing as well, to work towards the end goal. And I think if it's all about how you astonish people rather than how you don't go to prison for 5 years for selling houses to the wrong people, then actually that will breed better estate agency.
But it's a bit more than that, surely. It's a bit more than just saying, don't money launder and we'll all be okay. I remember one thing going way back, and it was I was only in the job, 2 weeks, and somebody asked me the most simple of questions. They asked me, right, we want to make an offer in this house. Can you just say if it was timber framed or a traditional constructed house? I hadn't a Scooby-Doo. So I just told them the first thing that came into my head, hoping I was going to please them. And it did get me into trouble back then, but if we extrapolate and take that to where we're at now, the whole point of ROPA isn't just about stopping people from money laundering. It's about ensuring that everybody has a minimum level of education and understand the processes in place. And the reason a lot of people become rogue agents is because they may understand how to sell, but they don't necessarily understand how they run a business. And then they get themselves into trouble. And then that's when their true nature comes out, and they start making decisions that they might not make if they understood how to run a business also, and how to be not just an effective estate agent, but an effective business owner or someone who understands the process of business. So ROPA is a bit more encompassing than that. And I do understand there's a lot of people out there go, we don't need ROPA, but we do need something. Because there's no, it's okay if you're from a big corporate and you have an education system in place and people are learning. There's lots of people out there who don't have that in place. Certainly in Northern Ireland, I think that's the case. And I'm sure in the mainland it's true as well.
I'll give you an example. The second company I worked for, which were an independent, really, really strong business. I'm not exaggerating here. They won all the awards, had a great business, a great market share. good brand locally, been around for years and years and years. They prided themselves on training and development, and I love that. I went from a sort of they weren't a corporate, but they had that sort of corporate feel about them, where training was, everything was knocked out in 1 week, and then you don't get any more training, and there's nothing. Just get in there. It's a dogfight. First week of that business, I saw a fist fight. The first business, and as a 22-year-old who was healthy and into his sport, I thought, well, this is what I'm going to do okay here. If it's about, we have a punch up to see who wins the applicants, I fancy myself against all of you lot. In hindsight, what a world estate agency was 20 years ago. Anyway, I went to this second business, and seriously, I took training development really seriously. Every week it was structured. We all got involved. I loved it. The culture worked really, really well. 6 months into someone working with us, new to the industry, great guy, really liked him, worked in a different branch. We're doing training, and he's 6 months into being a lettings negotiator. He's worked his way through everything, he's done all the training, but we have ongoing training. And we're talking about offer extraction. We're talking about the best way to extract an offer, process it, just some basic stuff, but some good tips, some good advice. And we're doing a role play, and someone says they want a 6-month break clause. They want a break clause. They don't say 6 months. And he says, so someone says, can I have a break clause in this role play? And he says, yeah, I think so. And it's really clear at that point that he doesn't know what he's talking about. Now, he's been with us for 6 months. He's working for a business that's great at training. They care. We're all in the same room. We're hearing him process offers. After that conversation, he said, Kevin, tell us about the break clause. And he said, yeah, I'm not sure if this property has one. He said, what do you mean? What do you mean? Where's the break clause? He said, there's something in the building, isn't it? I was like, no, that's terrifying. You've been here 6 months. People have been processing offers through you, and and it's not his fault. Absolutely, 100% not his fault. You go to a restaurant, you get bad service. Generally speaking, it's because the server's not been trained very well. And I pride that. I say that was a great business for training. So if that was managing to slip through, then what else is going on businesses that don't take their training seriously? So it's tough. Inducting people. I still learn something new every week. And I'm 20 years in. I bet you guys do, hear these niche scenarios that how do we deal with them? So it's tough out there. That's probably the best agents together question we've ever had, because we were all a bit stumped initially. There's one thing I heard last week, which I really like. Spencer Lawrence of Paramount Properties, really great agent, really great business. One of the things he does, all new starters, they give them a list of people to follow on social media so that you can start to learn from people outside the organization. And I thought that's genius, because there are some really great agents producing really great content. There are great trainers producing great content. It's a really good idea. So I would be looking through and finding good agents to follow to pick up tips and tricks. Right. We've been here an hour, lads. Waffle of the week. I'll go first. Right. What's the waffle I've heard, read, saw this week? So this is not a political podcast, but with the general election at some point soon, I'm sure there's going to be politics thrown around. Chris, am I about to take your one here?
You're about to steal what I was just about to say about politics.
You go. I'll go last. I'll go last. Chris, you go first. Go.
It might just the fact that we're being told that the next new incoming government, whoever that may be, is going to solve all our problems. That's, to me, is total bull. So from my perspective, I'm well out of politics. I don't want to get political, but I saw an article that basically just said, a change of government is everything we need. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with that comment, but also I think it's a lot more rooted than that. But yeah, without getting political, nah. There's a lot more that's going on in the world that a new incoming prime minister, whether she or he, what that is, it ain't going to solve our problems. It's not going to be the silver bullet. So that's my waffle of the week.
And for all our viewers, Mum, expect a lot of waffle over the next few months. There's going to be around politics, housing, wild claims. Stephen, what's your waffle of the week?
I think it was Rishi Sunak saying that with the HS2 Manchester section being effectively dissolved, that they were going to use that money to have a transport link from Manchester city centre to the airport with their metro link. Given the fact they've had one for the last 5 or 6 years, I think that's what you would call utter waffle.
Pure waffle. I mean, I don't know if Yeah, because as politicians, we're okay, but I don't want us to become bullies. But it's such low-hanging fruit. When a politician opens their mouth, there's just content. There's just content for us every time. Rowan, what you got?
I haven't got much waffle, to be honest. I will point you towards someone on social media called Will Grashoff, who you should all follow. He's a recruiter, OX7 Talent Partners, but their posts are just amazing. But he was calling somebody else out for waffle, and that waffle was a story on social media about they called this applicant, and the applicant said, "Don't call me, I'm at work." And then he put the phone down, felt a bit disheartened, and then they called him back an hour later and said, "I'm really sorry, my boss was in the room. I am looking for a job." Anyway, placed, got the commission, etc. And Will called this out, and I love Will. I agree with pretty much everything he says. But I did think, I don't know, I could be one of those applicants. I do that. I answer my phone and they go, "Yeah, sorry, I can't talk right now." And I think, why did I answer the phone in the first place? But if you want to have waffle called out, follow Will Grashoff, because he's very good at it.
Greshoff, Greshoff.
Gra, Grashoff. Yeah.
Yeah, don't you always love that one where you make the phone call to speak to them and they don't know it's you calling, and the first thing, I'm just about to go to a meeting. No, you're not. You still want to talk to me. It's okay. It's fine.
I'm in a meeting. I'm sorry, I'm in a meeting right now. What?
Of course you are. Everyone's in a meeting when I call. My wife, my dad, everyone. Right, my waffle of the week is a bit more specific. So it is. So we're not political. This could have been Lib Dems, it could have been Tories. As it happens, it's a Labour statement that I'm just going to call out, that they're going to put extra tax on overseas nationals buying property in the UK. Now, they're going to charge foreign buyers an extra 2%. Now, it's vague at the moment, but are we saying that regular stamp duty plus second home stamp duty plus 2%, getting very, very expensive to invest in this country, if that's the plan? Supposedly this makes residential property more affordable for first-time buyers and fairer for first-time buyers. What I'm surprised by is the mistakes of the Tory government clearly have not taught the politicians anything, because what they've done over the last 10 years, the lack of investment in UK, look what's happening to the rental market right now. It's absolutely insane, and the families that are being hurt by this. And now we've got someone else saying, "Oh, we're just going to do a bit more of it. Why not?" And it signs off with Keir Starmer saying they will build 1.5 million homes in the first 5 years of government. What a statement that is! Come on, Keir. Come on, Booby. That's, be realistic. You might as well have said 30 million, 1.5. But that's my waffle of the week. I like to do that. Right, chaps. It's been fun. It's been good. It's been interesting. People watching this might genuinely learn something and smile and think about drinking a cup of gravy. That's going to stay with me till I hate gravy, to be clear, and that's why for me it's not good.
I could drink a cup of gravy, but when it's got milk in it, it's a little bit different.
Well, no, I've got nothing. I can't help you there. It makes me feel physically nauseous. Stephen, Chris, Rowan, you've been excellent. The last thing for us to do is just hand over to Mr. Watkins for his weekly Watkins whimsy. It's not good for some of the speech impediment to try and say that. Thank you, guys. You've been brilliant. We'll see you soon.
Cheers, everyone.
Ben. Bye.
Remember, as estate agents, you shouldn't actually be worrying about house prices, but more importantly, you should be worrying about housing transactions. What are you doing to get a bigger slice of the pie? You should be doing short-term stuff like hunting, like going out there, door knocking, sending letters, and then long-term seeds that you're planting that you'll get the fruit or the listings next summer. And by doing both, you'll win big time.